Well, listen, kia ora, good afternoon, everyone. Look, it's great to be here with our awesome Education Minister, Stanford, and our great Minister of Infrastructure and everything else, and a boy from the Hutt who's done incredibly well, Chris Bishop. Can I just acknowledge and thank our Principal, Rachel Sol, for hosting us so generously here at Boulcott School. And Rachel, just thank you so much for your leadership of this great school community. We really do appreciate the role that you play. And I just want to congratulate you and all of your amazing team for the incredible job that you're doing actually in getting our kids off to a great start in life. What's happening here, I think, at Boulcott School is incredibly exciting. It's exactly what we want to see happening more across the whole of New Zealand. And can I just also say to every teacher, every principal, every teacher aide, thank you very much for all the work that you do, the hard work that you do, making a difference in the lives of our young people and getting them off to such a great start in their education. Look, every child and every young person in New Zealand deserves the same chance to do well in life, no matter what their background and what their circumstances are. Education, as we all know, is the great leveller. It gets you from one set of circumstances and opens the door to another. And receiving a world-class education not only sets young people up for success beyond school, but it's also part of how we ultimately build a stronger and more secure New Zealand. Kids of today are New Zealand's future entrepreneurs, scientists, doctors, engineers and teachers, and for New Zealand to do well in the future as a country, we need a very well-educated population. And that all starts with us getting the basics right, whether that be reading, writing and mathematics. When we entered government, far too many of our kids were leaving school without the basic knowledge and the skills that they need to fulfil their potential. The problem was pretty clear and the numbers speak for themselves. Only half of our children entering high school were at the standard they needed to be at on reading. And incredibly, 80% of our children entering high school are not at the standard they were needed to be at when they entered on mathematics. And the bottom line is that's not acceptable to any of us, and it's certainly not acceptable as being part of a first world country like New Zealand. We're not prepared to look the other way. We were determined that we need to get back to teaching the basics brilliantly. Structured literacy, structured mathematics, a clear focus on the fundamentals, but you can't build anything without them. I think we've made some really good and encouraging progress, and we're seeing some early and encouraging results, and I know Erica will talk more about that shortly. But today's announcement builds on that progress. It cements the commitment that we've already made to ensure the success of our primary and intermediate students in literacy and mathematics. The investment we're announcing today will contribute directly to our goal and our target of seeing 80% of Year 8 students at or above the expected curriculum level for their age in reading, writing and maths by December 2030. Yes, it's ambitious, but we should be incredibly ambitious for our kids and incredibly ambitious for our great country. And with that, I'll hand over to Erica to talk you through some of the details of today's pre-budget announcement.
Thank you, Prime Minister, and thank you so much to Rachel for hosting us here today as we announce our next step in the plan to lift achievement and close the equity gap for young New Zealanders. And I want to start today with some very encouraging news. The latest Curriculum Insights and Progress study from 2025 show early signs of improvement in student achievement across New Zealand for the first time in a really long time. Curriculum Insights is a nationally representative sample of schools around the country, measuring reading, writing and maths in years 3, 6 and 8. And what makes these results particularly significant is the timing. Our reforms have only been in place since the start of 2025, Term 1, 25. We implemented the new knowledge-rich English and maths curriculum, structured literacy, structured maths and new classroom resources, and a significant way in which we teach maths and literacy. These curriculum insights were conducted just after 3.5 terms of implementation, so not even a full year. And after such a significant reform program, and with only 3.5 terms of implementation, we were expecting achievement to remain stable while schools embedded these changes. So to be already seeing areas of improvement is incredibly encouraging. Overall, achievement results have remained stable nationally, but importantly, we've seen statistically significant improvements between 2024 and 2025 in Year 6 writing and Year 6 mathematics, increasing by 5% and 6% respectively. This exceeded our expectations. And they're particularly significant because for years New Zealand has seen this pattern of declining achievement between Year 4 and Year 8. And these results suggest that we're beginning to turn that around. But these, emphasise, are very early signs only. There is still a huge amount of work ahead of us, and no one is claiming mission accomplished just yet in less than a year of reform. Real success will mean that we are seeing small improvements over many years with more children at curriculum and less needing additional support. But these early results give us an optimism and confidence that our reforms are moving in the right direction. And I want to acknowledge the extraordinary work of teachers and school leaders right across New Zealand who've just got on with the job of implementing these reforms in their schools. ERO's latest report shows that at least 85% of teachers have changed their teaching practice in literacy and maths. That is an enormous achievement in a very short space of time. So to all of the teachers and the principals out there who've worked so hard to implement these changes, your professionalism and your dedication to your students is reflected in these early results. We did not expect to see results like these so early, and it is 100% because of the work that you have done in the classrooms, and for that we thank you. Now, we promised parents, teachers and principals that support would continue year after year to continue to embed these reforms properly in classrooms. And today, as part of Budget 26, we're delivering on that promise with $131 million of new investment into the existing Teaching the Basics Brilliantly reforms. In maths, we're introducing new maths hubs that are centres of excellence. One of the best things for building confidence and capability as a teacher is to spend time with experienced colleagues, looking at best practice, undertaking observation and discussing resourcing and planning. And these hubs will create that opportunity for the sector to now own these reforms themselves. We're providing hands-on tactical resources for every school for Year 0 to 8 around the country. We're funding another 36 maths intervention teachers to work with small groups for catch-up. We're introducing a new multiplication and division check at Year 5 to make sure that students are developing fact fluency and accuracy. And we are also, within existing funding, not part of the budget, expanding our hugely successful Year 7 and 8 maths tutoring program into Years 9 and 10. And that is a direct request by the sector, and we're pleased to be able to deliver it. In literacy, we're funding new curriculum-aligned writing books for Year 4 and 5. Really excitingly for me, we are providing a digital writing tool for students to build fluency in Year 6 to 8. Many schools already purchase this type of resource themselves, this tool themselves. We will be providing it free of charge to all schools between Years 6 and 8 to around 180,000 students around the country. We're introducing new decodable readers for older learners in Year 3 to 10. Now, these are age-appropriate decodable learners for those readers who are still struggling to get the words off the page. We're funding a new 12-week intervention program designed for structured literacy intervention teachers to take those small groups for catch-up. We're introducing a new Year 2 literacy check that will not only check reading but writing as well, spelling and simple punctuation. We're also providing videos and resources for teachers to support high-quality literacy teaching aligned to the curriculum. It's really important that we continue to invest in our teaching workforce. The $131 million package also includes professional learning and development so that teachers can use data really well in their planning, as well as high-impact teaching practices and explicit instruction in classrooms. And I know that many schools will be very excited about that last one. Great teachers are key to our successful reform, and we're committed to ensuring that they have all of the tools they need to teach the basics brilliantly. Since coming into government, we have been very clear that our focus is on teaching what works in a way that works, and we've invested in that, in what works, expanding initiatives and support that will raise achievement. That's why in today's announcement, you've seen more intervention teachers, more tutoring, more supports, more catch-up resources, more in-class resources, more training for teachers, and more quality monitoring of student progress, because this is how you build a comprehensive and cohesive system of reform. Parents expect that their child will learn to read well, write confidently, and succeed in maths, no matter which school they're at around New Zealand, and that is not an unreasonable expectation. There's a lot more work ahead, but today's results show that with evidence-based teaching, a knowledge-rich curriculum, high expectations and quality resources, great teachers, time on task and sustained investment from our government, we can turn these results around. We're ambitious for young New Zealanders, and this government is going to continue backing these reforms year after year to ensure every single child gets the chance that they deserve to succeed. Thank you very much.
Okay, we'll just stay there. Why don't we take questions for Erica around the announcement, then I'm happy to go to general topics of the day.
There's a lot of workbooks and tools in this announcement. How do you find a balance between providing new resources but also not overloading teachers with lots of new things that they have to learn before they teach it?
We do a lot of communication with the sector. I visit a lot of schools and I actually ask them and say, what are the things that will make the greatest difference? So in this package you will see that writing tool, digital writing tool between years 6 and 8. I've seen it in practice in the classroom and the results that schools are getting. And that was as a direct request from the sector, and we've been able to fund it. So we're listening very carefully to what the sector is saying. But you'll note in there we also didn't have a digital tool for year 4 and 5. We want them to be using a pen and paper, so there's books instead. But last thing I'll say is that the maths results overall were the best results we saw. And that is because of the maths books we put in the hands of every single child in this country. So we know when we invest heavily in resources in the classroom, we see results.
So you're confident teachers aren't going to come out and say, you introduced more workbooks last year, you're introducing some more this year, you're overloading us with things?
Look, this is coming directly from the sector themselves, and we are delivering it so that the schools do not have to purchase them themselves. Of course, it's up to each individual school and teacher to use the books or the workbooks in the way that they see fit, and all schools will use them in a different way, and if some choose to use a different resource instead, that's up to them. So nothing is compulsory, but at least we're making it free of charge.
Just looking at the results, the maths ones in particular, while we have seen them go up, they're still at a pretty concerningly low level. What is it that happens between year 6 and year 8 that you see that drop off? And is that something that can be turned around quickly, or is this a generation that we're going to see go through school and not come out the other end with basic maths?
Yeah, we are throwing everything at this, but it is not going to be an overnight fix. We have our maths action plan, which has invested tens of millions of dollars. The most important thing for me is improving teacher capability, which is the enormous amount of professional learning and development, the lesson plans, those workbooks to fast-track professional learning and development. And that's, I think, why you're starting to see some of those extraordinary results that we didn't expect, very early results, because of that investment. So it is going to take time, but we are talking about, it took us decades to get here. We are putting our foot on the accelerator. But it's going to take us a little while to get out of this.
And are those maths results? I noticed that the reading ones have gone down slightly. Are the maths results coming at the expense of reading?
The reading results are statistically insignificant results, so they've remained flat, which is what we expected to see. We've put most of our efforts when it comes to reading into year 1 and 2, into the phonics, most of our professional learning and development, our checks, our resourcing, and you saw those results in phonics. It is really hard to be able to comprehend a piece of writing in between year 3 and 8 if you can't lift the word off the page. So we're building right at the back at the start. So we expect to see that accelerate as those younger children come through. We are trying to raise everything at the same time, nothing being left behind. So reading, writing and maths, they all go hand in hand. We can't leave one behind. That's why today we've launched the Read to Succeed Reading Action Plan to put more resources into reading like we did maths.
Considering that low base, how realistic is it getting to 80% target? Or is that just a grand ambition that you're not actually going to succeed at getting to?
It is ambitious to get there, but I think we'll start to see accelerated progress as these reforms embed over time. One of the other really exciting announcements for me today and for teachers will be the explicit teaching practice professional learning and development. So it is how you teach in the classroom, which they've been waiting for. And so all of these little bits together, as you pull all of these levers at the same time, will start to raise achievement at a greater rate, and that's what I'm expecting to see.
I think the other thing yes.
If you were talking to parents or teachers across New Zealand tonight in 20 seconds, so they actually had an understanding of what this is, what would you say to them?
I'd say to them, if your children are in school today, in primary school, they will see more resources in their hands, more tutoring catch-ups, more time with intervention teachers, and more help with a teacher at the front of the class who knows how to teach maths, reading and writing with best practice.
With the 36 full-time teachers, will they be permanent full-time teachers? Or
Sorry, say that again.
Will they, with the 36 full-time teachers, will they be permanent roles, or will they be contracted, like kind of attached to the trials?
This is an exact carbon copy of our literacy intervention teachers. So there'll be up to now, I think it's about 179 full-time equivalent across the country. The school invests half the funding, we invest the other half, and then the school employs the teacher across the country.
How much of this has been made possible by cost savings, and could you go into what those cost savings have looked like?
Those are budget details, which we're going to have to wait for budget to talk about, otherwise I'll get myself in a wee bit of strife. But I can say every single budget, I have always made sure I've got stuff out of the back end that's not working, I've stopped it, and I've put it into the hands of children in the classroom.
Is this new funding or is this reprioritised funding?
It is a mixture, and you'll see that through the budget.
Are you able to just clarify how much is
You'll have to wait. You'll have to wait for the budget. I can't talk about reprioritisations and new money.
Is it been reprioritised from the Ministry of Education?
You'll need to wait for the budget, but there is a significant new money in the budget, as well as reprioritisations, as you've seen from me every single year.
And do you have expectations in terms of the Year 5 exams? I mean, what sort of level are we hoping for them?
Let's not call them exams, let's call them progress check-ins to make sure that young people have got fact fluency and speed and accuracy in their times tables and division. It is a really light touch, low stakes check-in, like all of our primary school assessments, just to make sure that we're on track. Too many parents say to me, my child got to high school and I got told they didn't know their times table. No. We've put it in the curriculum, and now we're making sure that parents will know that their children know their basic facts, so when they get to high school they can fly.
And I see as well there's support for Year 9s and 10s who are a year or more behind schedule. How many sort of people do we estimate that be?
Look, it's hard to tell, but from anecdotal evidence when I talk to principals, it's significant. And we want to make sure that these young people, when they go to do the literacy and numeracy co-requisite or the new foundational award, that they'll be able to get that award. And this is a critical resource that we need to put in to catch them up. We've done it with Year 7 and 8s. It was phenomenally successful. In the tutoring, they made 2 years' worth of progress in 12 weeks in one strand. And we want to make sure that more young people have access to that tutoring.
Anything else?
Great. We've got topics of the day. Yep.
Yeah, Prime Minister, you're meeting with the commercial fishing industry tonight. What is the main message you're expecting to hear, and what will you be talking to them about?
Look, again, I'm meeting with them as a sector to try and understand, where they're going, what they're trying to achieve. I'll be wanting to ask them some questions about how they are adopting new technology, particularly with respect to bottom trawling. So I haven't met with them before, but it's a chance to sort of get a sense of that sector, how's it travelling, particularly with respect to diesel costs, particularly with respect to how they see the outlook for the sector going forward.
Do you expect they'll try and get you to soften your position? National League will come out in the favour of recreational fishers over the last few months. Do you think they'll try and...
Look, I think, again, I try and meet with different sector groups at different times. I've met with manufacturers, I've met with people in the food and grocery sector. I'm meeting with the commercial fishers this time. I haven't met with them before, as I've said. We have some we have some differences for sure in terms of how we think, particularly the Hauraki Gulf should be managed going forward. As a national party, we've declared very clearly we want to be a much more progressive place than where we sit today. And I just want to be able to engage with them as I would with any sector. I'll ask lots of questions. They'll probably ask lots of questions of me, and that's how it should be.
You talk about diesel. Is the government looking at any further support for businesses?
Look, at this stage, you've seen diesel come down about 50 cents from the highs that it was at 3 or 4 weeks ago. That's a positive thing. We acknowledge it's still elevated. Our core focus, as we've been saying, is about getting that supply in place. The 90 million litres, the 9 days extra, will be in place by the end of June, which is great with the new tanks and then the new additional diesel coming in on top of that. We'll continue to look at, in our conversations with the different industry groups, the diesel users groups that we've formed, if and where we think there might be more support that we can offer people. But again, as I said last week, a core component of how we build a stronger, more secure New Zealand in a volatile world is making sure we have financial security. And you've heard us declare, from day one, as easy as it would be just to throw a cash bazooka around, we actually are being very disciplined to say, look, we have to keep an eye on the medium to long-term fiscals for New Zealand and our economic and our books, and making sure that they're in order, and equally look for opportunities where we can do that targeted, timely, temporary support for Kiwis that are really needing it.
There's a Japanese frigate in Wellington Harbour at the moment.
Yep.
You're in Japan in 2024. Is New Zealand working closer with Japan regarding security?
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. I spoke to the Japanese Prime Minister a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. And as you know, I visited there, and we're wanting to uplift our defence ties and our defence agreements as well, which we, in terms of information sharing and stronger defence ties. As you know, the New Zealand Navy is in the market for new frigates. We've said, I think, pretty clearly there's an option out of the UK, there's potentially an option out of Japan. You'll be aware the Australians have gone with the Japanese option, so, the Mogami frigate. So we'll see where we get to.
That's the exact frigate in the harbour at the moment, isn't it?
It's a variation of that, as I understand it. Yeah.
So defence, personnel looking at that at the moment?
Well, we'll run a very clear procurement process. This is independent of us wanting to procure frigates. I don't want us to mix those things up. But as you know, we've got a big investment. We've got to really lift our defence capability, and that's part of improving and enhancing our national security. And as you know, for the first time, we've got a defence capability plan that's actually matched with real dollars. And one of the things we need to do is obviously look at enhancing our frigates.
Will the government be stepping
Sorry,
in
I'll come back to you, Jim.
Sorry? Will the government be stepping in to fund Respected, the sexual violence prevention organisation?
Again, I'd need. We've got a budget coming up. We'll need to see. I won't presuppose any outcomes before we announce the budget.
Population data out today shows birth rate is falling again. Both yourself and Minister Stanford have noted as such and talked about immigration in that context. Do you have a target or cap for immigration?
No, we don't, but I think what has served New Zealand incredibly well is that we've got a smart, targeted and fair immigration system. And I think when you look around the world, you've seen either illegal or uncontrolled migration. Think about 13 to 14 million illegals in the US, possibly up to 1 million in the UK, including up to 115 illegals arriving by small boats each and every day. Think about what's happening with Germany, 1 million asylum seekers in a single year. Those are problems that we don't have in New Zealand because we actually have an immigration policy that has been making sure it's very strongly linked to our economic strategy, but also our infrastructure capacity. So, as you know, when we came to power, we had 130,000 net migration. It sits at 24,000 today. I think the long-run average has been about 31,000 over the last 20 years or so. And that's important that immigration has to stay connected to the shortages we have in the economy and also our capacity to build houses and support that with infrastructure.
So would you like it sitting around that 30,000?
Well, yeah, it sort of probably floats between 20 to 40,000 has been our historical experience. As I said, the average has been about 31 from memory. But for us, I think we've done a good job over a number of years, and even in our last 2 years, we've moved migrants from 70% low-skilled through to 70% high-skilled. As I said, our net migration's come down from 130 to 24, 25. And I think we've got the settings right because we've got it very strongly anchored in our economic strategy and also our infrastructure. And just go look at Canada, which actually got very disconnected from its economic strategy and its infrastructure capacity. And you've seen Canada now really tighten up its immigration settings and wind them back big time. So I think we've been running a smart policy.
As part of that policy, looking at the ratio of taxpayers versus people that aren't contributing into the system when you're looking at the migrants coming into the country?
Well, it's really just, as Erica as Immigration Minister done a great job of anchoring everything around our green list and essentially identifying where we have shortages in this economy and where we need to be able to bring in skilled workers to be able to support the country on those key professions. And that's as simple as that. We'll just keep looking at making sure we've got the right people that we need where we genuinely have shortages. We also have a big job to get people off welfare into work. We cannot be in the situation that we saw under Labor where there was 3.5% unemployment and 60,000 more people went on job seeker benefit. That's not an acceptable place for us to be either.
So you wouldn't let it go above, say, 40,000?
No, I'm not saying we're not setting a cap for it. I'm just saying to you that we have managed this, I think, in a very smart way, in a very fair way, and we constantly keep making a dynamic system that's very strongly linked to our economic agenda and our infrastructure capacity.
Prime Minister,
Sorry.
just on New Zealand's first proposal to buy back Bank of New Zealand, is any part of you worried that might resonate with some voters?
I think most voters, when they realise the possibility of borrowing another $30 billion to buy back a private company, to put into government ownership and government running it, that dog don't hunt.
Can you completely rule that out? Like, if he comes to the negotiating table after the election and says, I'm not forming a government with you unless...
I just want you to think about the proposal on the table, which is a proposal to go buy a private company for a minimum of at least $30 billion, of which would mean that we would go into the market and borrow more money at a time when New Zealand has doubled its borrowing as a percentage of the economy. Thank you to Labor. This in many ways is a Labor nationalisation policy, if you think about it. That's what's being proposed. So I'm just saying to you, it isn't going to happen. It makes no sense.
So easy to rule it out then?
Absolutely. Yep.
Why
Sorry, I've brought it up. Please.
Is New Zealand disadvantaged at all, though, by it being Australian owned?
What's that?
Are New Zealanders disadvantaged at all by Bank of New Zealand being owned, Australian owned?
Well, again, that's why we want to see Kiwi Bank growing aggressively. It's the fastest growing bank in New Zealand. We want to make sure they aggressively take it to the Australian banks and compete very hard with them, and we'll continue to make sure they can do that job. Sorry, Jamie.
Question on social cohesion. You've mentioned that in your speech recently. How would you rate that as a significant issue facing New Zealand at the moment?
Yeah, look, I mean, my purpose of my speech was to say, hey, listen, look, the world's chaotic out there. It's very volatile, it's very uncertain, and that causes anxiety for people, understandably, here at New Zealand and all around the world, frankly. And so the question is, we may wish it to be different, but it is what it is. So let's understand what it is, and then let's determine what we can do about that. And we can work with our other small like-minded nations to make the case for multilateralism, which we'll continue to do. But equally, we actually have a huge opportunity to build a stronger nation here at home in New Zealand. And the way that we get more security, national security in its fullest sense, or a stronger New Zealand, is actually by making sure we do have diplomatic and defence security, we do have economic security, energy independence, but also social cohesion. And my point on social cohesion was it's just not something you take for granted. Actually, it's not something you drive centrally from government either. It actually comes from a grassroots of all the players in our community and our society working together to try and understand. And yet we are fighting a series of mega trends. When you've gone through the pandemic, it's clear people around the world and also here in New Zealand, you can lose trust in government institutions. When you see the media mixing news and opinion, there's been loss of trust in media. Social media has meant that people polarise and go into echo chambers. There's been winners and losers out of globalisation. There's been also inflation and cost of living pressures, which we haven't seen for 30 or so years across the world. And equally, you've got the threat of technological disruption as well. So all of those mega trends are coming into all societies in 195 countries around the world. When I talk to other world leaders, those are the challenges that they're wrestled with as well. I think in New Zealand we should be very proud of the level of social cohesion we have, but I just wanted to make the point that we need to collectively, together, individually, collectively work together to enhancing it. Sorry, I'll just come back.
Why haven't you done any Q&A interviews recently?
Well, it's just a decision from my media team, but I'm here with you today, so I think that's pretty good.
Both the ministers behind you have done an interview or Q&A in the past.
Yeah, look, I'm sure I will in due course.
Do you think that you will do it?
Oh, look, I'm sure we will in due course, but the point is, when I look at how available I am as a Prime Minister to you as the media,
Q&A is different to doing this.
sure, but there's lots of different media formats, and there's lots of different ways in which we can reach the people of New Zealand with the key messages that we have. Today we're talking about, we're here today doing it with you. As some Prime Ministers I know don't have formal post-cabinet press conferences every week. That's quite normal. They don't have set media engagements. They don't make themselves as available in the Parliament as we do as well. So I think we've got great accessibility to the media. But also I'd just say to you, we also have a range of different media options out there now as well. I mean, I've had some of my best conversations about mental health on commercial radio rather than with journalists in the gallery. I've had some of my, there's a whole bunch of different outlets now by which we need to communicate and reach out to people. We'll continue to do so.
Is it too expensive to have babies in New Zealand?
Well, I think it's a trend you've seen in developed countries all around the world. And what we are doing as a government is making sure that we are rebuilding the economic proposition. If you work hard, you can get ahead. That actually you can be safe in this country with enhanced law and order. Announcements like today, making sure that your child will be set up well to compete in the future and won't lose out jobs to kids from Singapore or New South Wales or Canada or Ireland. We want them to be able to access those high-paying jobs that are out there in the world.
Some of those countries, though, have policies that are directed at, like, tax cuts for young families for the first years of their babies' lives. So your government started to means test, as I've assumed, the Best Start payment. Are you making it harder for families to start a family in New Zealand?
No, we want to make sure we build the proposition that people can say this is an awesome place to raise a family. And having travelled around the world and seen rapidly ageing populations in the West in particular, where people are all dealing with rapidly ageing populations, that's where that's why we as a government are really rebuilding that proposition so that you can say I can work hard and raise a great family here.
But
Cool.
that's a fine thing to say. But what functionally are you doing to make it easier for families to have savings to?
Oh, look at the support that we've put behind Family Boost, to make it easier for families to actually get the childcare that they need to support them in their working life. Look at the work that we did in terms of lowering income tax rates for working New Zealanders. First time in 14 years. Again, we'll have to wait to the budget.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys.
We're going to leave it there.
Appreciate it, guys.
Have you had any privacy concerns in terms of how we might age verify people over the age of 16?
Yeah, look, let me just talk to that quickly. We have a comprehensive program of work as we drive towards creating a government bill, which Erica is leading. I don't want to presuppose all of that development and that work. We're well aware of the issues, having seen other countries look at the challenges of implementing a social media ban. But I just ask you to zoom back out and just say to parents, where they see a lot of good guidelines and safeguarding in the physical world, we're going to make sure we've got safeguarding in the virtual world as well. And I think this is a really important thing for us to be doing.
Cool.
Okay, thanks team.